Okay, thanks, Martin. I never know whether to stand or to sit for this. I'm going to sit at first, but I may stand up during the course of the talk. So, okay, my talk is building your cloud infrastructure with Python. So let's get into it. Agenda, 3 simple points. I'm going to talk about Python Boto. I'm going to show you some examples. And finally, I'm going to try to put these examples together so you can understand kind of the workflow of building a very simple app, maybe by yourself in maybe 5 minutes.
Neo, no one has ever done anything like this.
That's why it's going to work.
Yep, so it's going to work because we're pushing a button and getting so much ammunition. So that's what I feel when I do my infrastructure in the cloud, right? We get to see infrastructure as code. We're not lugging servers around, plugging things together, and so on. And as programmers, we love to have version control, right? We want to make changes. We want to be agile. If something goes wrong, we can fall back to a previous version. And also, as the needs of our application grow, we want to be able to experiment with sort of new technologies. How do we scale? How do we add things? And being able to define this infrastructure in software, in a template, allows you to be able to do this quickly. So I'm going to talk about Boto because it connects to AWS. Right now, AWS has a ton of features which for me are really good to scale what we do at Revolution Analytics. And I'm going to start off with a simple example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an AWS EC2 instance in Singapore. For those of you who are new to this, an EC2 instance is Elastic Compute Cloud. So using AWS, you can create your VM instance in quite a number of regions. In the US, in Australia, in Singapore, in Europe, and even sub-regions in some of those places. So today I'm going to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an instance in Singapore, okay? And I'm going to allow SSH-only login. So what this means is SSH, if you have ever done sysadmin stuff, you would know that SSH is port 22. I'm going to close everything except port 22. Okay, so this is the code that does it. Connect to AP Southeast 1, that's Singapore. I'm going to create the firewall rules, SSH. Next, I'm going to create a key pair. What this means is this is SSH. You can either SSH via a key or via a password. So by default, password is disabled, sorry. And we're using a key to log in. The next one is just a command to start your instance. And the next few lines are just to wait for your instance to get up and running and print out the IP address. Okay, so this is my first demo for this presentation. I hope it doesn't blow up. Okay. I'm going to copy and paste. Just copy and paste everything. Of course, there's an error. It's a demo, so okay, I'm allowed to have errors. This says it's invalid group. I've already created the security group. So I'll just go ahead and create the key, which, okay, it's already been created. This just saves it to the key to the current directory. I'm using the micro instance, which if you create a new account with AWS, you get quite a number of hours free. Okay. So with this line of code, I get the handle to the instance. Update says it's pending, meaning AWS is creating the instance at this moment. I should be able to see it in my console. Okay, it's running. And I've got the IP address. So the same instance here is showing it's running and it's doing some status checks. And once we're done with that, we can SSH in and access the instance. Now I'm using an AWS AMI instance, so by default the user is EC2-user. And that's the instance up and running. It's a standard Linux instance. You can do whatever you want with it. Okay. So going back to Boto, I've got a few links to the documentation. This is where you go to look at the APIs, what you can do, what you can't do with Boto, and this is the source code. There's a ton of stuff. Like I said earlier, AWS has a ton of stuff. Boto supports most, if not all of it. So you've got everything from what I've shown you just now, EC2 to databases, to email and payments and storage. So I'm going to show another simple example too. In this case, I'm going to show an S3 bucket. S3 stands for Simple Storage Service. Essentially, you put stuff in there. You can access. You can put files. You can retrieve files and everything via an API. You can even convert that into a simple HTTP server. Okay, so I'm going to create this, and I'm going to make it open for putting images and retrieving images. And that's the code that I've used. Essentially, I've connected to S3. So I've shown you the earlier slide shows all the different services that Boto supports. For each of these services, we use a separate connection to indicate what we want to connect to. Right? The next line is just to create a bucket in an S3. Here I've indicated you've got to have a unique name. That could be a gotcha for you because bucket names are unique globally. Right? So if you can't clash with somebody else globally. Then I've defined this in the Singapore region, and I've added some rules to allow the following get, post, put operations on this bucket. So putting all together, I've created an EC2 instance, and I've created an S3 bucket. So what I want to do now is to show you a very simple application to deploy this application onto an EC2 instance, get a picture from the user and push it to S3. So how I'm going to do this, I've made a copy of the Flask Direct Uploader application. This is from Heroku. I made a fork of it on GitHub. And I'm going to, like I said, use S3 to store photos. So some of the things that I need to do when the instance is created, I need to install the software prerequisites. Python needs to be installed. I need to retrieve the software from GitHub, and so on. Of course, I need to initialize the environment variables, and last of all, run the server. So all of this is encoded in my init.sh. This is a very short bash script that does everything I said in the previous slide. By the way, the access key and secret access key I put there, they will be deleted after this presentation. So please don't bother copying them down and using it for your own purpose. Okay, so the next piece of code is going to show you attaching this shell script as user data. And this shell script will run when the instance is created on EC2. Can everyone see this? If it's too small, I'll publish the slides later on the Facebook page, and you guys can have a look there. So if you recall from simple example 1, what I did was create the security group, create the key, and start the instance. So what's new here, I've added another rule for port 80 to serve HTTP. I've added open init.sh as the user data. So it's very simple. It reads user data as a string, puts it as an argument in EC2 con run instances. Run instances creates your instances, and in this case, it adds the user data to the instance to run. So this file shows everything you saw in the slide. I've actually commented out some of the security group creation and the demo key creation because that's already been created. But everything is the same.
Data always a shell script?
That's a good question. For the EC2, for the Amazon images, if you, depending on what you put as the first line, if you put #bang, bin bash, or bin python,
So something that's always executed.
it's always executed the first time that the instance is created. Of course, if you create your own instances, if you create your own AMIs, that's you can put custom behavior inside. Some people have used user data to put JSON structures, XML structures to do whatever initialization they need. Okay. So the instance is up. We can see this from the console. I'm gonna shut down my last instance so that I don't get charged for it. Okay. And just to show you, this is the bucket I created early on. There's nothing in there. There you go, it's empty. So this is again is a very simple Flask application that allows you to upload a file. I'm crossing my fingers. This sometimes breaks. I haven't figured out why yet. But yeah, it's done. Okay, so this is the actual URL. The bucket name comes first, then S3 Amazon AWS, and the name of the image. If I go back and refresh, there you go. So that actually works. It wasn't working this morning. I had an environment problem. Okay, so a recap. I've used Boto to create VM instances. I've used it to create scalable storage on EC2. And I've used user data to initialize VM instances so that you make use of your EC2 instance to store photos, data on S3. There's so much in Boto that there's actually too much to cover here. I encourage you to have a look at the Boto documentation. And where to go from here, what to do next, is really, it depends on your system architecture, what you want to do with it, what you're deploying, and so on. Some of the tools you can use to actually build out your infrastructure are frameworks like Fabric. Fabric allows you to define a list of machines and operations to perform on those machines in sequence, and you can define essentially your whole setup process as code in Python. Similarly, for SaltStack, it allows you to define relationships between different nodes. So you can have dependencies. One could be master. Master starts up first, and the slave start up later, that kind of thing. I wanted to do a CloudFormation template demonstration here, but it kind of crashed on me earlier. So I'm going to point you to CloudFormation, but what CloudFormation is essentially a JSON representation of your infrastructure. At Revolution Analytics, we've used CloudFormation to define clusters of nodes. Head nodes are public facing, and X number of nodes are behind a VPC, a virtual private cloud. So essentially, you're protecting a number of your precious resources and only exposing it via a single point. Yeah. I'll try to put more information on the Facebook page after the talk, but this is all I have for now, unfortunately. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Things like Chef and Puppet use some of that stuff under the. I mean, they may not use Boto directly, but use the same kind of APIs underneath the covers to do some of that kind of stuff as well.
I haven't used those because they're Ruby. I prefer to have my whole stack in Python. Yeah, but that's not to say that what's better and what's not. It depends on what you want to use, what you're comfortable with.
They're higher level than something like Boto, right?
This.
How reliable is user data to initialize an instance?
Pardon?
How reliable is user data to initialize an instance?
Okay. What I didn't show here is error conditions. If something goes wrong in a script, what do you do? If you use CloudFormation, you have the opportunity to use CloudFormation APIs. Essentially, they are calls back to CloudFormation to say, okay, signal the error condition, signal success, and so on. So this is really up to you as the user to make sure that you check your services or processes have started up correctly and return the relevant success or error conditions. And once you've done that, CloudFormation will take care of reporting that to the user for you. If you defined it to roll back and delete everything that you've built, it'll do that as well. So I guess that the short answer is there's no default error handling. You've got to write that in yourself.
So could we set up API calls on top of launching instance?
It will be included in your shell script. So let me see if I can find something here. So if you look at this, this part is what they've done here is they've defined a bash function called error exit, which calls the CFN signal. This is embedded within your user data file. If an error condition has occurred, you call this signal along with a reference to the wait handle which you pass in when you create your CloudFormation template. That will signal to CloudFormation / AWS that something has gone wrong, and it will bubble up to the user. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Bubble up to user via emails or something like that?
No, it will go up to CloudFormation. CloudFormation, you can use it to subscribe to events. So you could subscribe it to an email handler to send an email to you, but that's something you have to do programmatically as well. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? No.
Okay.
If not, okay. I have one last thing to share. By the way, Revolution Analytics is hiring. We're hiring data scientists and Python engineers. So if what you saw here interests you, that's only about 5–10% of what we do. If that is interesting to you, come talk to me. We'll see what happens. Okay, thank you.